Thank you very much, Chair. And first of all, to say that I support the motion. I think it's great to get an opportunity to debate this. I am smiling somewhat at the number of Fine Gael speakers referring to delivery of broadband. It's been a long road to get to here, and obviously we're all friends in government, but it is worth pointing out. There was 2 previous governments where you were at the table, and the broadband still hasn't been delivered to Mayo. I can tell you that much. There's a lot of people waiting. But I would agree with you that it is vitally important for a remote working strategy that people can actually get online. So that is something that we are committed to in government across all 3 government partners, to delivering broadband finally to every citizen, business and community in this country. I think that the public have been ahead of us on this. Remote working is here to stay. It is something that was forced upon us, but it has accelerated a change that was happening anyways. People want this, they are demanding it, and we now have to make it happen. And there are many aspects to making this happen, but I think it's well underway. And the reasons people want remote working is because they want to reduce the stress in their lives, the anxiety, get a better work-life balance. And I think for many families, whilst lockdown is very difficult, having that extra time at home, not having to commute an hour or 2 each way every day, rushing to the childminders in the morning and again in the evening time, people have had a different way of life for the past year, and it would be almost impossible to get back to the way things were before. And thank God, because I don't think anybody wants to go back to that stress that we've had. And this commuter belt that we have around our capital city, that's developing around other cities as well, and people travelling long distances to get to work, is having a detrimental impact not just on their mental health, but on their families' well-being and their children as well, who are missing out on that vital family time where both parents are present together, mum and dad if they're there, or even in a single-parent household. The parents are present with their children and not absolutely wrecked, tired from a long day at work and commuting. I mean, it's quality time as opposed to quantity, and that's what's been missing, I think, for many families, is that quality time where people have space and energy to actually have a proper family life. I think we need to acknowledge, however, that there are consequences to remote working, and all of us that are here in Leinster House today, that have walked around the streets of our capital city, can attest to how quiet our capital city is right now. And the same is true for Galway, for Limerick, for Cork, and for a lot of our bigger towns. They have been hollowed out, they are very quiet, and that has implications for lots of people's jobs, because a lot of the coffee shops, the retail outlets, bars, restaurants are built around those people coming into the city centres, to the town centres to work. So we have to deal with the fallout of that. We know it's happening, we know it's going to take place, but how do we protect all of those businesses that are going to lose out from that reduced footfall, from people not being there in the morning to get their cup of coffee going to work, to pick up their lunch on their break from work, maybe to pop into some of the retail shops when you've got a lunch hour. There's a lot of businesses are losing out because of that, and a lot of businesses are not going to survive remote working. So we need, as a government, to do something quick about this, to prepare for what we can see is coming down the tracks, to protect those businesses and to protect those jobs, and to try and realign how we use our city centres and our town centres. In terms of the facilities needed, I've touched upon broadband, and that's clearly a massive deficit in terms of many rural communities in delivering proper remote working strategy. But I think remote working has thrown up a whole plethora of challenges around duty of care by employers to their employees, and how we make sure that when an employee is working from home, that they still are working in a safe working environment with proper equipment, and that they do log off from work, that they don't take work from their workstation to the kitchen table and then into bed at night. And that's really important, that there is that cut-off point. And I know that some companies are doing great work on that, and that they're making sure their employees have a set working space that is separate and distinct from where they live and have their family life. And I think that's going to be a challenge for employers, because not every employee has the space to do that. And that shouldn't preclude them from availing of the option to work from home. So I think there's going to have to be outside of the box thinking on behalf of employers, and the biggest employer in the country is the state, the public service. So we need to lead the way on this to make sure that employees have the option to work from home, but when they do so, that they are properly cared for, that the duty of care owed by an employer to their employee is properly maintained, and that we don't see any difficulties down the line. But again, it's about planning ahead, anticipating these challenges that we know are coming down the tracks, putting a plan in place and making sure that we can deal with them adequately and effectively. I think also we need to look at local amenities. You know, if more people than ever are going to be working from their base at home and not travelling to the towns and the cities that they would have normally travelled to, they're going to require better amenities locally in their smaller rural towns and villages. And I think we've come to have a new appreciation, or a greater appreciation, for shared outdoor public spaces. You know, and there's been a lot of discussion, I think, today in the Chamber at various times around the National Development Plan, and many of us have raised that issue, that the deadline is coming up this Friday to have your say and put in your view on how that plan should be shaped, that will effectively deal with every fabric of life: the distribution of housing, education, public amenities, transport and communications, and all other aspects of life. So it's important that these national plans, that are quite long-term plans, reflect the changes that have happened at a quite accelerated pace in the last year. And part of that will be around redesigning and reconfiguring our outdoor shared public spaces, not just in the large urban centres, but in our villages as well, and our smaller towns, because they've been really neglected on that front. And that's because until now, most people left their villages and travelled elsewhere to go to work. But people still need to have that space to go outside, to recreate with their work colleagues at times, but also for their own, I suppose, well-being and health, that they have an opportunity to exercise outside. So I think remote working is here to stay, but because of that, there's a lot of changes happening in terms of making sure people have the facilities to do that the duty of care is maintained, that we have the facilities there in place in terms of broadband, but also that we deal with the incoming difficulty we will have in terms of people no longer working to the same level in our city centres. And how do we reconfigure our city centres to still work for us? Thank you.